We are live. Pulling up the chat. Yep, thank you. Wonderful. Happy Thursday, folks. Hello, Maria. Welcome back. Don't forget, folks, as you come on in, make sure to turn your chat to all panelists, all attendees. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back. Couple, okay, yep, not a problem. Whoop. Perfect. Let us know where you're coming from. Hello, Toronto. Toronto, did you hear the good news? Oh, it's your birthday day today, Maria. I caught it quickly there. Holy cow, you guys are rolling in really fast. The chat's just going off. Tanzania. I think I saw England and somewhere out there very quickly. South Carolina. Welcome back, everyone. Hello, Chicago, Texas, LA. Happy Thursday. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Been an interesting, hello, Hawaii. It's been an interesting couple of days. We had here in Canada more announcements around our potential national childcare. Last night I was listening to the president speak. Very interesting things down there for you guys happening right now. I'm going to be following that one. Hello, Guam, Jersey. Hello, hello. For those here in Ontario, we just don't quote me on maybe all the deets because I don't know all of them, but 18 and up, I believe by the mid to end of May area for folks who need the vaccine. Find out more. So, hi, Lindy. Hello, hello, folks. Welcome. Happy Thursday. I was a minute or two starting. Francis, I'm correct. Thank you. So I'm going to give you guys a minute or two more just to settle on in. For those just joining us, please make sure to turn your chat to all panelists, all attendees. This way folks get to see everybody where you're coming from. So makes it for great conversation too. Excited to have everybody here today. Give you a minute or two. Vaccine tomorrow for a couple of you folks. My parents just got theirs today. I'm very happy about that to keep them safe. So hello, San Francisco Bay, Jersey City, Nova Scotia. Hello, Vancouver. Welcome, folks. Glad to have everyone joining us. Just enjoying the tunes for a moment. We're gonna give you guys a minute or two here longer. Hello, First Nations. Welcome back. Hello, Mississauga, New Jersey, Texas, California. I see a couple of you folks, you guys are getting your shots soon. Congrats. Lots of staff have been through and had their vaccinations. Folks, I think we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So nice to know. Hello, Kenya, welcome. Hello, Edmonton, Nebraska, Fort McMurray. Have some family out that way. I feel like we all have family out some ways, to be honest with you. It just happens, so. Second shot, or sorry, you get your first shot next Wednesday. Fantastic. Welcome, folks. If you haven't, please do follow us on Instagram. Kaya keeps everything and anything up to date happening there, and links and everything are sent out to what's going on here at Hi Mama, as well as if you are not part of our Circle Time group, please do join us. Just remember to to answer all of the questions that they're set up there, folks, just to keep the space safe. Thursday, guys, and I can't speak today. Sorry about that. Please do answer the questions, though, for the Facebook group, and we'd love to have you join us there. All right. As the song is coming to an end now, I think it's time for us to get rocking and rolling. Hopefully everyone's settling on in and enjoying their day here. Let's get into the housekeeping bits before we jump into all of the fun of today. We're going to be talking about social emotional development. I'm very excited. But before we do, let's, like I said, take care of all of the homework pieces to start here. As always, folks, this is not personalized legal or financial advice. I am probably the last person you want to seek for both of those things. Trust me on that part. At the end of the day, folks, we want you to take away great tips, tricks, techniques that you can implement within your classrooms. As well, if you're looking to make any changes, just make sure you're seeking out the right support, whether that be legal, financial advice from an advisor. If it has anything to do with licensing, please make sure that you are talking to a licensing rep or getting some information from referrals, things like that. But make sure that you are seeking the right people for any big changes or anything like that. Okay, let's jump into our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word Takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
Then we're just going to jump into our diversity and inclusion.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
Housekeeping, folks. If this is your first time with us, just hold on here. These are probably the most important pieces you might want to know. If this is your, 50, we're on 53. Where are we? I don't even know anymore. Still your important piece. The session is always recorded, folks. So if you have to leave or duck out midway, sorry to see you go, but happy to have had you with us. If you, for any reason, maybe you're missing it, not to worry, we are going to send out the recording with the show notes. All right. If you're looking for closed captions, we are recording with the transcript on, so you can access that later, as well as if you want, you can hit the CC tab and have the closed captions on for yourself there. Next up, certificate. So the show notes, the slides, the recording, your certificate, everything will be sent out. Please keep an eye in your inbox. They will be coming over the course of the, tomorrow and early next week, so Monday, Tuesday area. So please just keep an eye out for it. It will be coming. And last up, before we jump into intros, if you're having any connection issues, any trouble with Zoom, please do seek support.zoom.us. They are the folks who know their product the best and can help you at the best. All right. Sadly, I have husband IT for a reason. All right. Next up, if you've never been with us before, I'm Ria. I'm one of the early childhood educators here at Hi Mama. I'm also the community ambassador, and I have my colleague Kaya here on the chat. Fun fact here, I have a new picture up today. I'm very happy about this. We decided to put up a shelf somewhere else in our house and finally get to see Tintin happening in real life. So kind of makes me happy, actually. Have a bit of a change up in the background. On the chat, we have Kaya. Kaya, get on here as always. She's sporting her hat, folks.
I have my
Tell us,
Hi Mama
Kaya.
hat on and propeller. I was filming all this morning for our Teacher Appreciation Week. We're doing a really great campaign next week, May 3rd. I actually don't know what day it is. It's April 29th, whenever May 3rd is. For our Teacher Appreciation Week, it's going to go out in the newsletter. So make sure you are subscribed to our newsletter, and it'll also be available on Instagram as well. It's going to be a really great campaign. We want to make teachers' lives easier, and I think we've just about nailed that with this campaign we have going on next week for Teacher Appreciation Week. So keep your eyeballs open to your inbox and to our social media. Hope to see you there.
I can't wait. Folks, I get to see some of the great stuff that Kaya puts together in advance as, obviously being on the team. And I'm very, very excited for all of this to come through and for happening. So before we jump into intro of our special guest, we're going to do our poll up for the day, our question of the day. So I'm going to just launch that up. Please do answer. We'd love to know a little bit more about yourself. So, whether you're a teacher joining us, a center owner, director, whoever you may be, parent, other, whatever you qualify yourself as. All right. And then we wanted to ask a couple of questions around how you take payments at your center right now. I know in the past when I was working, we did, debit and credit and check and cash, I think. Guys, it's a little bit back now. I have to think about it. And we were curious because I know a lot has changed over COVID. And it's been a super interesting piece of conversation that we've had over the last couple of days here at Hi Mama, talking a little bit more about it. So give you an idea, we have a lovely chunk of teachers here. Welcome. I know you guys are probably squeezing this in on a break or, doing your best to sleep time, things like that. And a lot of people are taking cash and check and, using a billing software. Fantastic. All right, folks, I'm going to end the poll in just a second here. So if you haven't had a chance, please do click on that. And we're going to end it now. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating in our poll today, letting us know a little bit more information about yourselves. A couple of you folks, you're government funded. Very true. Different perspectives happening. This is the things I love to hear. All right, let's jump in and have fun. I'm super excited to welcome our special guest on here. Lorea, please do join us right now. And I'm going to small intro on your side. You're an author, you're a consultant, I feel like you're a little bit of everything. You're an educator at heart. Maybe before we jump into all the fun stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe how you got to where you are now and a little bit about Heart and Mind.
Yeah, so good morning. I'm joining you from sunny San Francisco Bay Area. I'm really excited to be with all of you this morning. And as you said, I'm many things, but I think that above all, I'm an educator at heart. I started my work as a special education teacher and did that for several years before I kind of switched and started to look more at student achievement data. And that was the time when I had to pick my topic for my doctoral dissertation. And I realized, wait a minute, I've been doing, I did an assessment for 4 years. And from doing that work, I realized there was something from the way that we were looking at student skills, there was something missing. And with my background in special education, there were so many instances where I spent my time teaching students how to cope with being in a classroom, maybe where they were reading several grade levels below. In many situations where students had to develop their social emotional skills. So that's how I came to the field of social emotional learning. That's what I studied for my doctoral dissertation, and I completely fell in love with the field, and that's what I've been doing since I finished my program, and really helping teachers to understand what it is social emotional learning. I know there are many misconceptions out there, and being able to not only look at what students need, but what are the skills that we bring as adults into the work. And just to answer your last question, the Heart and Mind model, I created it to make it more tangible and more practical for educators to bring those skills into their classrooms. So HEART, as we will see during the presentation, is an acronym for 5 essential social emotional skills. So I'll stop there and I'll give you more details as we go through.
Yeah, we don't want to give it all away right off the top. That's the fun part. Maybe tell us a little bit more, a couple of pieces you're going to talk about today, and then we'll dive into all the fun stuff.
Yeah, so today I thought that I wanted to start with kind of like the big picture and the research before we dive into the specifics of what are the skills that we should be helping students develop in our early childhood classrooms. And there are 2 pieces that I think are so relevant to the work that we do, and even more now that we are going through these pandemic times and all of our emotions have been heightened and we have experienced situations that we never thought we would be through before. So the two things is the importance of emotions in learning and understanding how emotions impact the way that we are in the classroom. And then the importance of relationships and how human development really it is driven by the kinds of experience that we have with others in our school communities. Then we'll dive into the importance of adult SEL skills, and I will also discuss a little bit the fact that SEL is not a curriculum, but truly a lens that we have when we come into our classrooms.
I'm very excited for today, and Lorea, this is going to be amazing. So I'll let you take it from here.
Perfect. So as you mentioned, I recently published this book, and my first chapter, this is the title of the first chapter, We Feel, Therefore We Learn. And it talks about the importance of emotions in learning. So I want to engage the audience and just ask you to just check in and tell us in the chat, what are some emotions that you are bringing to the space today? So just use the chat, let us know, what are you feeling right now?
Kaya's excited.
So I see happiness.
Oh, it's going fast.
Yes.
Overwhelmed, gratitude, happy. Here they come.
Distracted, happy, stress, curious, busy. Technically, busy is not an emotion, but I'll let you have it. Bubbling, grateful, curious, overwhelmed. That's fantastic.
Lots of gratitude.
A lot of gratitude. And the reason why I asked this question to be able to first create the space for us to acknowledge what we are bringing. So in this webinar, you are probably coming to this space because you want to learn something. Maybe there's some challenges that you are dealing with in your center or with the adults that you work with or with your students that you want to find an answer for. And all these emotions that you are putting in the chat are going to determine your ability to engage with the presentation and with the things that I will be sharing with you today. So it is worth taking the time to say, well, if I'm exhausted and I come to this presentation, is there something that I can do to bring myself forward and be able to be present with the situation, with the context that I'm in right now? So really acknowledging how our emotions impact learning. So if you can show the next slide. So this is a quote that I think really summarizes why we need to be talking about emotions in our early childhood centers. And Dr. Mary Ellen Imordino Yang, she's an affective neuroscientist, and she's at the University of Southern California. And she says, based on her research, that it is neurobiologically impossible to build memories, engage complex thoughts, or make meaningful decisions without emotion. So there is the conception that we had, years ago, where we almost told children, oh, when you come into the classroom and you're coming for learning, you got to leave your emotions outside the door, right? Otherwise, you cannot focus on learning. And what we know today, based on the research on human development and neuroscience, is that we need to bring emotion into our classrooms. And I feel like early childhood educators knew this better than anybody else, right? But sometimes K-12 and even less at the college level, they don't listen to early childhood educators, and all they know about, how students develop. So the bringing emotion into the classroom means that we are engaging students' curiosity, that we are opening their brains for learning, and we cannot do that unless we are engaging their emotional reactions, that we are really tapping into what they bring from outside of school, but also the experiences that we create for students to relate to each other and relate with the adults in all the activities that we present to them. So next slide, please. So as you were sharing with me how you were feeling this morning, what's going to happen is that that drives your attention and influences your ability to process information. So imagine if that happens for us as adults, it's even more important for children in the ways that they come into the classroom, right? To really be able to think, okay, these emotions that students are experiencing are going to determine their ability to connect with the content, to connect with with other students, and to pay attention in the spaces that they are in. Something else that it's important to consider is the fact that the brain has many mechanisms to be efficient. And that means that the brain doesn't pay attention to things that we don't care about. So, and maybe this is less true in early childhood because children are so curious, but sometimes we see that students will say things like, oh, are we gonna do this again? And they don't want to engage with activities that may be repetitive or maybe with content that they are not interested about. And the point here is to acknowledge that as we are coming into the space and working with children, we need to tap into their natural curiosity, because that's a place where the brain is going to pay attention, where the brain, if there's something that calls their attention, we know that the brain is going to be open for learning. While there are other things that if it's not interesting or it's not solving a problem for them, it's going to be so much harder for them to be focused, right? And I think that we see that in early childhood with the variety of topics that are addressed, all the themes that educators bring into the classroom, and the fact that we allow students and encourage students to explore things that are of their interest. So just connecting that back with the fact that there is a neuroscience reason for that, because the brain, doesn't pay attention to things that they don't care about. The other thing in thinking about the role of emotions in learning is this combination of students, when they come into our classrooms, they already bring emotions, right? So there's something that happened before they left the house, or there was an argument with a parent or a sibling. Maybe they were late and the parent was rushing them out of the house, or maybe they didn't find the right outfit. I can tell you, my youngest daughter, she started kindergarten this year, and we have these very interesting situations in the morning, because if the outfit doesn't match or doesn't fit the way that she wants, that is a problem for her, right? And then if we don't take the time, or if I don't take the time to help her process those emotions before she goes online to her class, or some days she goes to school, it's going to be hard for her to kind of like make that switch, right? So as educators, acknowledging that students are going to come into the classroom with those emotions. And then on the other side, what happens in the class is also going to generate emotions. So for example, for students that maybe really like to have conversations or play with each other during read out loud, for example. So they are going to have certain emotions that come up for them that as educators, we need to help them identify and process. And in SEL, we talk about emotions as information, as data. And I feel like that's such an important concept, because then we don't feel the need to categorize emotions in positive or negative. What we are actually saying is that emotions provide valuable information about what happens inside and how we react to our environment. So can we create the space for children to really embrace those emotions and have a space where they can fully experience the full range of feelings that are characteristic of being a human being?
Lorea, I have a quick
Mhm.
question actually. Sorry, before you go on. I definitely know what you mean. I've been there with the child who's had that argument with their parents. They've come into the classroom, whatever the argument may be. And of course, let's say they're flustered, they're frustrated, they don't know how to maybe even express how they're feeling. As an educator, we want them obviously to get out of those emotions, but like how long do you recommend like letting them feel it and working them through those emotions before we try to redirect how that emotion is feeling them and trying to get them back onto like a more positive path for the day?
Yes, that's a really good question. And what I have observed is that teachers, because many times we have to go do something else, right? Or maybe there's a meltdown while we are managing the classroom. Sometimes students need more time to process the feeling, and we are rushing them to through that processing process before they are ready, right? And what happens is that within that situation we end up invalidating their experience or invalidating their emotion. And as you know, unless you have the time to really acknowledge, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. And children at a young age, they are going to need that emotional coaching. They are going to carry that through their next activity. So many things that classrooms are doing is, for example, creating a peace corner or a relaxation corner where students can go and take, sometimes it's less than a minute to just sit down. Maybe they do, they draw a picture, or they have some materials, some tactiles that they can use in order to help them process those emotions. And then the adult can bring them in and say, okay, are you ready? Or do you need to talk about this some more, right? But it's very important for the child to have that space to process. So we are helping them to normalize the fact that we have emotions. They are going to come up, and we always take the time to process before engaging back with the classroom or with the activities, because that's where what we are doing is increasing the space between the emotion and any behavior, any reaction that the child has. And we cannot do that unless we take the time for that emotional processing to happen.
Awesome.
But thank you for asking, because that's a really good question. And then the last thing that I would share with all of you around the role of emotions in learning is that there are certain things that students experience that increase their stress levels. And some of them are based on just their individual circumstances in their families, or sometimes simply their own natural instinct or their personalities. But there are other aspects that are more social and cultural issues, such as racism or poverty or discrimination, that are going to increase the stress levels of our students. And that's going to impact their ability to express their emotions and also regulate their feelings when they are feeling that their stress levels increases. So as educators, I really considering who are the children that we have in front of us, and what are the experiences that they have, not only in the classroom but outside, in the ways in which we, society treats students based on their race, their gender. We have different expectations when it comes to emotions, based on those different components of our identities. And I believe that our role as educators is sometimes to question those expectations, so we can really create the space for students to fully come as fully human. And a quick example is the expectations we have that are different between boys and girls, for example. And girls are, generally speaking, encouraged to share their feelings a lot more than boys. And that starts in the home. It starts with the parents, where parents of boys will say, oh, don't cry, don't share your feelings, because there's going to be a consequence, right? Someone is going to make fun of you, or you're going to be bullied because you are crying in the playground. So as educators, I think that our role is to unpack those expectations and be able to provide a space where children can come fully in not only expressing their emotions, but in their ability to connect and be with each other. So that was like like a marathon of like the role of emotions in learning. And I just want to say that it was, this, if we were thinking about this webinar as a meal, this is just like the first appetizer, right? Like we could go like very deep into all these concepts, but at least for today, I think that was a good place to get you started thinking about what this means for you as your role as an educator. The second aspect that I feel is so important from the research is the importance of relationships. And I want to engage you in the conversation. And now I would like you to think about an educator that you had in your life that was very much a meaningful experience for you. Right? So just picture that person, that educator that touched your heart. Maybe they grew your mind or your soul in ways that you weren't expecting. And I want you to share with us in the chat what that meant for you, like from your feelings, or what were you able to do that you didn't know was possible because of that relationship. So go ahead and share in the chat about this special educator that you had.
That's a hard one, Lorea. I don't know if I can pick just one. So lots of confidence. I'd have to say the confidence for me, feeling listened to. I think one of my personal key takeaways was the relationship building with parents. Mm-hmm. It was something that I went very, very fresh, very, I didn't really know anything going in, and to see her work with the parents and talk with the parents, it was mm-hmm. very much something that I strived for as an educator, and hopefully I got there. I'd like to think I did.
Right. Yeah, and I see confidence, I see mm-hmm. feeling seen and heard, believing in myself, strong, compassionate, having a positive role model. Absolutely. Yeah, I came out of my shell more, right? That person that kind of like pulled us in to really shine, trustworthy, confidence, validation. Wow, and some people sharing their preschool teachers. So we have those memories, right, of those educators, even if in our early childhood experiences, that really made a difference in our lives. And that's why the title here on the slide, as you can see, is a champion for every child. So every child needs at least one person that they feel they have that special connection that they can go to, that is someone who really loves you as an individual. So the question that I have for you is, can you be that educator for a child? Can you be that person that builds the bridge in a way that you are truly seeing the child for who they are, you are loving them for who they are, and you are able to bring their best selves forward? And the reason why this is important is because relationships truly influence our human development. So if you think about a child developing through their lifespan, that process of developing is not a straight line. It is not something that you can say, I'm putting, it's not like putting something in the oven. Well, maybe that's a bad example, but where you can do something and you know exactly what the outcome is going to be. Actually, human development is very unique to each individual. And it's driven by, of course, the experiences that we have as we go through our lives, and also the sense that we make of those experiences, how we create meaning through those relationships. So that's why the importance of relationships, it should be, if there's anything that you take away from the webinar today, the one thing I would like you to take away is that we need to build relationship driven schools. And so important in early childhood, where you are really planting the seeds for creating healthy adults in the future. So if you can show the next slide, Ria. So there are three aspects that I share in my book that I feel are important in order to build these positive relationships. And again, these relationships are not something that we build the first 6 weeks of school, right? Sometimes, at least in the schools that I've worked with, there is an emphasis of, oh, this is the things that we do during the first 6 weeks of school when we are setting up our norms, we are really building the culture of the classroom. And then it's almost like, oh, you forget about those. Well, in order for those relationships to really flourish, we need to do this every single day. And something that I like to share with educators is that every interaction with a child is an opportunity to do SEL, to teach SEL. Every interaction with a child, but also with an adult, with a parent, the way that we treat each other as colleagues. All of those are opportunities for us to do SEL. So when it comes to relationships, I see these three important components. One is this emotional connection, is really what I was describing earlier, to really getting to know your students, seeing who they are, and then showing who you are as well. So there is a level of vulnerability that it comes with embracing SEL that I want to acknowledge, that maybe somehow educators, we learned that in order to be good teachers, we don't bring ourselves into the picture, right? Like we don't share our feelings, we share some personal things, but not too much. So students don't, we don't show our weaknesses. But if we want to establish that emotional connection with our students, we need to be open to share who we are as well. So that is the foundation of that emotional connection, is a bi-directional relationship, right? Is the child shares with you and you share with the child. It needs to go both ways. The other aspect is trustworthiness. And that's important because it truly sits at the heart of any successful relationship, right? If we are showing up in our classrooms and our students can trust us, because if we say that something's going to happen, we follow through, because we are honest, because we are authentic in our teaching, and because we take into consideration the beautiful souls that we have in front of us, then that trusting relationship can be created. And that also speaks to how we create that trust with the parents of our children, right? And what happens when the parents don't look like us, right? And there is maybe a difference in our social, our cultural, our ethnic background. Those are things that influence the way in which we can create trust in the communities that we serve, that our school serves. And something that as educators, we can intentionally build and cultivate. But we need to be aware that if, for example, as a white Hispanic woman, if I'm working in a space where most of my students are African American, for example, there's going to be some trust that I need to work on so parents can see that I have the best interest of their child in mind, and that I'm really working to bring their culture into the classroom, right? So it's not only what we do inside the classroom to provide students with skills, but how can we bring the assets that the students have in their families into our spaces, right? So that's a way to build trust with our families. And then that relates to this component of cultural responsiveness, right? And, as I really enjoy the fact that when you started the webinar, there was a land acknowledgement, right? That we are in indigenous land. And here I'm in Ohlone land, right? So acknowledging that that there are cultural components in the ways that we relate to each other, right? And that we need to bring that into our classrooms. And I can tell you, at least in the United States, there are many voices that have been erased. And there are certain cultures or certain, when it comes to language, things that we don't bring into the classroom, and we should, right? So we can build that really attention to the diversity as an asset. That's something that is positive in what we do in our schools. So the next slide, please. So the question is, so I gave you kind of like this appetizer of like the role of emotions in learning, and then this importance of relationships. And the question is, okay, so how do we support students to grow socially and emotionally? So the answer is really easy. So if you can share the next slide, and it may be surprising to you. So the answer is SEL starts with the adults. It starts with us. And it is, you would be surprised how many teachers really intentionally, with the best intentions, try to create these SEL spaces for kids in the classroom, but they are not bringing themselves, or they don't have a clarity to what it means to really be a socially and emotionally competent adult. So the work needs to start with us in terms of practicing and modeling what it means to notice your emotions, to deal with a stressful situation, to show empathy for others, and to establish those positive relationships. And this is an individual effort, but it also speaks about the ways in which we organize the adults in school buildings, right? So in a space where as an adult you are not encouraged to bring your feelings, that is problematic. And especially in this pandemic, we are seeing that educators have this almost unbearable level of stress, like trying to figure out how we are gonna work with our students and welcome them in our schools, or how we are teaching online. And the levels of stress have increased so much during the pandemic, and yet schools are reticent to come together as a staff, as a group of educators, as a community of educators, to really talk about how difficult this moment is. And what are the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves so we can be present and we can be focused for our students. So it is both a combination of like a personal responsibility that you have as an educator to practice these skills yourself, to really live SEL in your life, and to take the time to build in those practices and the tools that you then are hoping your students develop, right? But how can we model, and an example is when, and we have always been in situations where you react to a student's challenging behavior in a way that is not positive, right? And that is normal. Sometimes it's very hard to really be present and engage and notice your emotions before you go and grab the child or whatever, whatever you do, or to give an answer that maybe is not so positive. It is normal, but it's the work that we do to try to increase that space and to really be mindful about how we are modeling these skills for our students. So in the next slide, you have the heart in mind model. And as I mentioned at the beginning, HEART is an acronym for these 5 essential social and emotional skills that I believe are important not only for the students, but for us as an adults. So in the work of SEL, the first part is, okay, let me look at these competencies and see How do I bring myself to model and practice them myself as an adult? And then, okay, let's think about how we integrate these competencies into the activities, the content, and the things that we do in our early childhood classrooms, right? But again, the work needs to start with us. And just a check on a time, Ria, we're good? Okay.
Yeah, you're great. No worries.
Okay. So I'll just take a couple more minutes just discussing. Okay, you are now tell me, I need a little bit of feedback here. So tell me,
okay.
Chad, are you with me or not on the adult SEL? Just tell me yes, no, maybe.
Yes, 150%.
Okay, I see yeses.
They're coming.
100%, awesome. Absolutely. Okay, good. And if you are a maybe, I also want to talk to you. And if you are a no, I also want to talk to you. I just needed that little feedback there. Okay, great. All right. So now thinking about how we bring these, how we make sense of these skills for the kids, right? And that's the second part. And what I've said for many years, and I feel like I repeat myself saying this, but for some reason, schools still have this misunderstanding is that SEL is a curriculum, right? We purchase this binder or these resources, and then we just teach these lessons during our morning meeting, our circle time, and we go home and we are done, right? Well, SEL is not that. It has to do with how we engage ourselves as adults, but also what is the environment that we create in our early childhood classrooms, right? So even if you teach an SEL lesson, but then the way that students that you maybe facilitate conversations with students is punitive or is harsh, or students that have challenging behaviors are maybe ostracized, right? Those are practices that are harmful, right? And they don't have that foundation of SEL. So when you think about SEL with students, I want you to think about three key aspects. One is that explicit instruction. And that's a place where we take in our SEL lessons, right? And maybe we have a read aloud about a character that gets really upset. We talk about the feelings, and then we practice with our students, maybe like a mindful breathing, right? So that's a time when you are like really teaching explicitly the skill. Then there's another intervention or strategy that is looking at how you are building your classroom, right? What are the teaching practices that you are setting up for your students? So imagine, as a complete extreme, if as an early childhood educator, which I know it's out of reality, it doesn't happen, but if you were to do like a lecture, right, and you would just only talk at students all day long and talk at them, right, that would not be engaging students' SEL skills. But if you are creating activities where students come together and they have to build something, or where you are looking at different books and you are finding the commonalities in books, and then students have to come up or tell a story, right? There are so many ways in which we can help students to practice these skills through our teaching practices. And then the third leg is to think about the academic content. And in early childhood, you are lucky because the standards are not kind of like, on your throat, and you don't have to be so worried about like, you have milestones, but it gets so much harder as teachers are going in K-12, because they have those standardized assessments and they really have to show performance. And students have to show mastery on the standards, but with the academic content that you bring and how those are connected. So for example, when you introduce your numbers or your letters, how we normalize that conversation of like, oh, how does that make you feel? And there are students, and we see in mathematics, for example, where students have different reactions to mathematics, and some students really love it, and other students, they need a little more encouragement, or really to unpack what are some of those emotions that come with different activities or different content that we are sharing and bringing into our classrooms. So those are kind of like those three, broad strategies when you think about like how to develop these in your students that you should be thinking about. And in the book, I go through each one of these competencies and provide like resources and tools that you can take and then be explicit and intentional about how you are building those SEL skills with your students.
Lorea, are you ready to take some questions?
Yes.
That first of all, fantastic. I'm sure you've been watching the chat as you've been asking, and lots of folks have been giving out some great information and some great tips, as well as commenting on the things that you're saying as well. Let's start with a couple of questions. So folks, if you do have more questions, we already have a couple, but we'd love to get a couple more from you today. Please do send them in the Q&A and Kai will answer them here live. But Lorea, let's start with, I want to back up a little bit, talk a little bit more about some of the pieces in the classrooms that teachers can use. And I'm going to start with school agers. Is there any advice or tips that you can give us on, especially those school agers right now? I know it's very hard with COVID, but on promoting social emotional development, and especially if they're shy or maybe a little bit more withdrawn?
Yeah, so the first is to acknowledge that there is that variety, right, of when students come into our class. And you were asking specifically about classrooms or online?
Take whichever direction you'd like.
Okay.
Let's say in the classroom for now, and if you'd like to go virtually, then please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those students that are more shy or maybe more reticent, the first questions that I would ask as an educator is, what is this child trying to communicate? So we in SEL, we see behavior as communication, right? So we want to make sure that we are paying attention and seeing, okay, if this student is moving away from the situation, or they are reluctant to engage in the group work, for example, what is it that it's happening for them? So there's almost like a pause that first, in order to intervene, first we need to know the why, right? And maybe the student, it could be a variety of reasons, right? Maybe they don't have the language skills, or maybe they had experiences that were not so positive if they are coming from a different school, for example, or maybe they need a little to build that, for the adult to build the bridge in order for them to engage with other students, right? So first step is asking, okay, why is that student displaying this behavior? And then helping them to build that bridge. And to bring, to develop those skills. So as you were seeing in the 5 competencies in the heart and mind model, we could go through for each one of your students and think about, okay, what is the level of emotional literacy that this student has? What's their ability to regulate their emotions or empathy, right? Going through and kind of like, having a mental checklist of what is expected from this student for that particular age. But I think that, again, is starting with thinking about the why.
I think the why it's very, very important at pretty much every age, actually. It definitely can plays a huge factor into a lot of your decisions, a lot of where you're going to take the next step. In knowing that why and knowing the child to that intimate level is very important. And it leads to that positive relationship that you were talking about. It leads to that continued growth. Let's jump in. Another question here, talking a little bit about parents. Is there ways or any tips that you have about talking to parents? Maybe if they're seeing that their child has, let's say, some emotional issues going on. Do you have any tips about what you can start the conversation with parents about that, maybe if this is the first go at home?
Yeah, I think that the first part is building the partnership with the parents. So when parents come, and I've, as I said at the beginning, I've been an educator, and I have experienced a parent coming to talk to me about their child, and my first reaction is to feel defensive or worried because, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe they are coming upset, right? So the first step is to notice, well, how are you coming to the conversation as an educator, right? That's the first thing. And then seeing, is there any bias, any assumptions that you are making about the family or the child that may be hindering your ability to really see clearly for what's happening, right? So I feel like there is this important part of self-reflection first. And then once you have the parent, it's important to focus on that competency of reigniting relationships, to listen, right? What is the story from the parent's perspective? And when things happen, there's always two sides of a story, right? There's what you see in the classroom as and how they behave, and then there's the behavior that the parent may experience at home. And sometimes those two things are not the same. I can tell you, you know, with my own children, that I would go to their preschool teacher and say, my daughter yells and does this, and the teacher could not believe that that was happening at home. And they would look at me and say, she never yells here. And I'm like, really? It was hard for me to believe, because her behavior at home was completely different, right? So it's kind of like, okay, you're building this puzzle of information of what's happening, and then trying to support the child. At the end of the day, we are educators because we want the best for our students. We want to see them grow and thrive and become the best versions of themselves. And in order to do that, we need to, you know, build that partnership with the families. I think that if we can see them as allies and not enemies, that's an important step in fully supporting the child.
100%. It's so important to have that relationship with parents, guardians, whoever it may be, to be able to start putting those puzzle pieces together. And it comes with that you need to make sure that the parent views you as a partner, a working partner with you, so that, and then you can continue to support the child so much more. Okay, a couple more questions. I want to turn back and talk a little bit about culture. You had mentioned that it's hugely valuable. If any of my older webinars, you know, I value culture and I value the different foods they bring me. That's probably one of my top pieces, but as language is next. But let's talk, do you have any maybe tips or tricks or techniques that you may have for bringing culture into the classroom in different ways?
Yeah, so an easy one is the holidays and celebrations and traditions, right? So just having this open dialogue with the families to say, you know, let us know what are some of those celebrations, what are some of the traditions that you have at home that you want to share with the classroom. And I know that when my kids were in school, because I'm originally from Spain, although I live in the US, there were certain celebrations that I went and shared with the kids, and we did an art and craft together, and we read a book together. And it's such a nice way for kids to see, oh, wait, you know, my friend celebrates something different, and they have this beautiful tradition, and they have these beautiful dresses, and really talk about the different traditions that we have in the classroom. That is honoring the culture of our students when we bring in what they do at home. And that's also an opportunity to invite parents to come and share what they do, right? And that's another strategy where you are building that connection and that relationship with families. But even in a space where maybe, you know, culturally your students may be more homogeneous, you can still like see, well, maybe beyond your immediate community, there are other communities that you can bring into the conversation, right? So I think that the more the students see that culture, language, tradition, those are assets, and those are beautiful things that we can learn about and share with each other. I think that that's a way also to reduce the amount of stereotypes and prejudice that we have towards other groups that are not our own.
That's fantastic. I 100% agree. Thinking outside the box, if maybe you have to go outside of your area a little bit just to bring in that expertise, maybe even partner with a center outside of your area that has a different demographic. There's so many great ways you can go about it and learn so many fun and interesting facts. So it's a great
Right.
piece. One last question here. This is how, I'm going to read it here out, so make sure I don't mess it up a little bit. How would you help a child understand what it is and what it means to be a leader? Sorry, what it is to be a leader. Currently, we are reading social stories about being a leader, but still the child seems not to be understanding it. He gets very frustrated, upset at a high level when he doesn't get to get his turn to be the leader. Any recommendations, Lorea? Lorea, sorry.
Yeah, so I imagine what I'm hearing is a situation where the child, they all take a turn to be the leader. Yeah, I think that I would go back to the basics of like that emotional piece and how the child process that emotion that is coming up. Sometimes with children, it works also to do some prep work in terms of having the conversation ahead of time. So for example, if they do it once a week and it's the child's turn, to have a conversation the day before and say, oh, so it's going to become your turn, and kind of review what are the expected behaviors, what are the positives, right? What is the enjoyment, the joy that the child can take out of that experience, and what happens when there's that frustration or that situation. So it's almost like having this pre-conference with the child to prepare them to be successful doing this role. And then see if that may work on it. Other strategies could be to have a general conversation with the class, not particularly about this student, but to review those expected behaviors and say, oh, what happens when we don't take turns or we don't let others take this role, and just have a conversation as a class and ask students to brainstorm. One of my favorite activities is when you ask children to come up with their calming down strategies. They come up with the best things to do, right? It's like, oh, you can go outside and go all the way around the playground, and then maybe you visit the other classroom, and by the time you come back, you are ready. So anyway, asking the children, many times they have great ideas that you can incorporate to help with that situation. You could also do it with a buddy, right? Maybe if the child has somebody else helping him or her with that, or they with that situation, that may be helpful. So those are, just a few tips. But of course, with many of these strategies, you got to try and see what works, right? So it's kind of like a trial and error where, that something may work and another strategy may not work out.
It's so true. I'd say with every educator, we don't have a one size fits all box for anything, and we're always finding something new. Lorea, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before we wrap everything up, I just wanted to give you the floor for one last minute. Do you have any pieces of advice, words of wisdom, happy thoughts you want to leave the folks with today?
Yes, I want to finish with an appreciation. I feel so, full in my heart that educators have gone through so much during this pandemic. And I just want to say thank you for showing up, for doing the work, for just pouring your hearts into the children that you work with. And I want to say I see you, I appreciate you, and thank you so much for doing the work that you do.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's been, once again, an absolute pleasure. The folks on the chat, they're giving you a lot of love. Let's jump into wrap up here, folks, because I know a lot of us want to get going for the day, and I'm sure some of you need to get back to the classroom. If you haven't, please do check us out. Kaya's going to post a link here into the chat, but we'd love to have you join the Hi Mama family. There's so many things you can explore, so I recommend booking some time with us. Tell them Kaya or myself sent you. We'd love to have you checking us out and talking a little bit more about the rest of the things that Hi Mama does to help out you folks as much as we can. So please do. Just to note, tons of resources. Our podcasts, actually, Lorea, your podcast, we're going to share here with the show notes that you did with Ron. There's tons of them on there. All of our activities, our blog posts, there's so many things happening. Of course, all of our webinars. So know that the team here was behind you, and to continue to support your amazing work that Lorea was saying is 150%. You guys have been amazing, keeping us together over the last century, you name it, the whole time that we've been here. So, all right, folks, wrap up show notes and recording. Please do keep your eyes out. They will be coming early next week. So you'll find the slides from today, the recording, as well as the certificate. I'm going to be sending that out. It will also be available with the recording for those who couldn't make it to the live session. But next week, kind of a great piece to continue on. We're going to be talking a little bit more about communication strategies. So this is great because partnering up with parents and building those relationships, they go hand in hand. So this is a great piece. Next week, Thursday, May 6th. I actually had to think about it before I wrote the date in here today. 2 p.m., same time. Please don't be shy. We'll be here. We love to see you here. So please do register as well. Follow us on all types of social media. Lorea's social media, we're going to also include in the show notes as well. So if you do want to chat with her further, we're going to make sure you can. But follow us, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're out there. Kaya's all over that. So please don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Kaya, am I missing anything? I always double check.
Nailed it. That was a really great session, and the chat was blowing up. So many great questions. I'm so sorry if we didn't get a chance to answer your question, but head over to Lorea's social media. She has like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Connect with her there. She has tons of great resources as well. I know that they'll be really great for all of our early childhood educators out there.
Thank you once again for joining us, folks. Lorea, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a pleasure again having you. Everyone, please stay safe, healthy, happy, and we'll see you next Thursday at 2.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.